All right, so yeah, there's a lot of things in these truth tables, okay? Now, be careful because we're going to introduce a couple of things like we already did the negation, right? So in one of my statements, we have P and not P. Now, if I have here, so I'm going to go with the other statement that I had earlier, and that is squirrels are rodents. Well, that's true. And if I reverse it to include the word not in there, squirrels are not rodents. Well, that would be false now. Now I'm going to change over to the other one. I'm going to change over to the fish. So in this case, let's say are and not are. So are would be fish live in the water. Well, that's, I'm sorry, fish live in space, which is false. Now it's supposed to be false for this example. Fish live in space. And if I change it to the not, it goes fish do not live in space, which is true. Fish don't live in space. In fact, I don't think anything can live in space. Well, no animals that we can see, of course. So that would be a negation. So again, negation is like it's like the word negative. You know, if you're like, I know in movies they usually have like robots say it. But then, you know, if you listen to like truckers or police officers, sometimes they'll say, like when they're talking on the radio, the word no might not be in there. They'll be saying a whole bunch of things and you won't hear the word no, but they will often say the word negative, you know, to mean no, because that it's a lot longer and it's not mistakable because, you know, sometimes you don't get very good reception on a radio. All right, so now we have to also have these two other ones. We have the conjunction table and the disjunction table. And what that means is conjunction means and, right? So like a junction is where things come together. So comes together. A disjunction is, if you remember, like you have that sign, and the way I explained it was that they face away from each other. So if you're driving down the road and there's two roads, you know, it splits into two roads, you're gonna have to make a choice on which one to go down. Whereas a conjunction comes together. So there's two roads and now they both go into one road. But an easier way to remember conjunction is that it kind of looks like an A, right? It looks like an A, but it doesn't have that bridge between those sides. Now, again, these might be a little bit confusing. Well, they're not really that confusing when you, like when you're really trying to think about it. They're not as confusing as you might think, okay? But I know this is a lot of information coming at you kind of at once. All right, so sticking with the statement, squirrels are rodents, that's true. Q is squirrels live in the forest. That is also true. I have two true statements, so that means squirrels are rodents and they live in the forest. So that's true on both accounts. Now I'm gonna have to pick a false one here. So squirrels are rodents and they live in space. Now, when I say and, that makes it a little bit different because it means both of those have to be true, but squirrels don't live in space. All right, so because one of those is false, that makes the whole thing false. And for the third one, oh, and one other thing is pick up this pattern: true, 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 false, false, true, false, false, because we're going to be using this pattern a lot for this assignment. So basically what you're doing is you're starting with two truths and you're going to work your way to two falses. And that just makes it kind of organized so that when you have to pick a combination, you already have some combination that already includes all of them. So again, two truths, then two one-truths, and then two falses. All right. Anyway, I'm going to continue on with this. I don't remember which one I was at. I think I was on this one here. Or was it false and then true? So like squirrels are felines. Okay, that's false. Squirrels live in the forest. Now again, squirrels are not cats, so that one doesn't make any sense. So that's false. If there's even one false, the whole thing has to be false. But if I said, let's see, squirrels are felines, and squirrels live in space. Well, both of those are false. All right, and then disjunctions, a little bit different. You notice that we have the same pattern, true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. And again, that's just a way to make sure we have 4 different combinations of what we're looking for. We want 4 different combinations. So this one would be true here. So squirrels are rodents. Squirrels live in the forest. So both of those are true. So that means this entire statement is true. And let's look at another one. Squirrels are rodents, or squirrels live in the forest. Or squirrels live in space. I had to make that one a false statement. And one of those is true, right? Squirrels can either be rodents or they can live in space. Even though they don't live in space, that I don't have that option. I can pick one of them. So remember, with or statements, if you get one of those right, then that'll make you happy, is the way that some people describe it. Right? So if there's one truth, that's happy. You know, that I like the truth. Truth makes me happy. Unless it's a bad truth, and I don't like it. But again, it goes back to that example of, you know, do you want pizza or hamburger? You know, if you give me either one of those, I'll be fine. Or if I said, wait, hold on. Do you want pizza or hamburger? You have to pick one of those. Okay, if you don't want one of those, you don't get a choice. You're just gonna have to pick whichever one you want more than the other. But if you say, I'm fine with either pizza or hamburger, and someone picks pizza, then you're still happy. You know, if they pick something that's not on the option, which I can't think of any restaurants I don't like. What's a restaurant I would not like? But if someone gives me that option, you know, then I'm not happy. So that's the difference between or and. So again, with and, you need both of them. With or, you can just use one of them. All right, so let's see here. Squirrels are felines, and squirrels live in the forest. So again, there's an or, which squirrels do live in the forest, so that's true. So one of those is true. So, you know, in this case, it's good enough for me here. So that's why we mark it as true. But if neither of them, so here I have 2 false statements. Squirrels are felines and squirrels live in space, or squirrels live in space, which both of those are false. So there's no option that I could pick that works out. So again, that's just like somebody saying, or, you know, that's like me asking somebody, can I get pizza or hamburger? And they say, too bad, we don't have either of those. You're just gonna get, I don't know, weird Italian food that I can't pronounce the name, with black beans in it. All right. Or even if it wasn't something that I really, really don't like, you know, even if it was just something else, like if they gave me Chinese food, I mean, I'd probably still be happy, but, well, it didn't make either of the statements true, though. Anyway, so here's what we got to do for constructing tables. So here we have a whole bunch of tables going on. So we've got to make sure we include columns for each statement involved. So in this case, we have P, Q, R. Now I'm gonna have to change a couple of these, but I'm gonna try to stick with them as close as I can with the fish and the squirrel examples. Include any columns for any negations that they require. So some of these have a negation in them. And again, that means not. So in that statement, you have to put the word not in there somewhere. And you have to include for any of them that they ask for. Lastly, include the column for the compound statement. All right, so these ones are going to include negations. So P and R. So I think I had a couple of these. So, and again, this is kind of confusing at first, but what we should do, start with P and R. Okay, for now, don't worry about the not statement. Okay, don't worry about the not statement just yet. So for now, just cover it with your finger. Okay, don't mark it. I'm marking mine off because I can't cover it with my finger. Maybe if I photoshopped a finger in there, maybe that'll work. But for now, I'm just going to ignore it, okay? So I get that same pattern, true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly in that order, but you've got to make sure you have each combination of each possible set of outcomes. And again, easiest way to do this is start with as many trues as you can and work your way to as many falses as you can. And just make sure you don't have two of the same combination. All right, so now that we have that, we have P and R. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse R. So the R statement that I had was fish live in the water. All right, fish do not live in the water. It's going to change. So it was true. Now it's going to go to false. If I pick the statement that is supposed to be false, like if I said fish live in space, well, I'd have to change it to a not statement. So fish do not live in space, which is true. Fish don't live in space. And then I do the same thing here. True becomes false. False becomes true. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore another statement. Now you don't have to even cover this with your hand or your finger or whatever. But we don't need this R statement right now. We had that just so we could get the inverse of it, the negation of it, right? The opposite. We want to change all of those trues to falses and falses to trues. Now from here, we're going to get both of these again, the true and the false. And since we're using an or statement, if there is one true, that means the whole thing is true. So on here, it looks like I have one true statement. So that means this whole thing is true. The whole statement is true. Over here, I have two trues. Even if they're both true, that just means it's still true. But on one of these, remember it was true, but the second one has now been changed to false. So I have two false statements, which means my actual statement will now be false. And for the last one here, I have one true, which means again, it is true. All right, so I hope that made sense. Let's go ahead and do another one. So this one is going to be number 2. And again, you don't need to, you don't need to really mark your paper. I'm just showing you how this kind of works and goes together. Now here it says opposite of P and Q. So negation of P and Q. So we're going to start off again. I'm going to just cover this up so you're not distracted by it. So we start with the same statement: true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. And you could probably switch these middle ones and it would still make sense. All right, but again, you just need one combination of each one. So you cannot have, two of these with two trues or two falses. You can't have more than one of those. So again, we just start off with the basic. And for this one here, I'm going to switch. Okay, I'm going to ignore the middle one because right now we're talking about statement P. We're going to switch all of those to the opposite. Right? The truth value is going to be the opposite one. So if it was true, it'll now be false. If it was false, it will now be true. So you see now we changed it. And that's all it was. We just changed the trueness of each one. Now in this case here, we're talking about, that's not the one I wanted to cover up. And the one I want to cover up is this one here, because we don't have regular P. Since we don't have regular P, let's just cover that with a finger or whatever, just ignore it. And do the thing where we have to determine the truth statement with the and statement here. So remember that if it's an and, there has to be two trues. Okay, there has to be two. Just like if you're going to apply for a job that says you need to be 21 years old and have a driver's license. Okay, you need both of those. If you have one of those, your boss is well, would be your boss is probably gonna say, nope, I can't hire you because you need both of those things. If you're gonna be driving trucks, you gotta be old enough to accept the danger, and you also have to have a license that shows you know what you're doing. So anyway, yeah, even though this one has a true and a false, it's still considered false, because if there's one false, then the whole thing is false. Two falses, yeah, definitely still false. Now, two trues is the only way you can get a true with an and statement. And if I have one F and one T, which is pretty much the same thing, FT, TF would be the same thing, but there is one false, and that means that this statement is false now. And again, it seems pretty confusing at first, but it's, I don't know, I think it's kind of easy. Kind of easy to be like, okay, well, you just got to remember this and then that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go down a little bit. We've been on this one for a while. And I'm going to just kind of keep it near the middle of the screen. And if you're kind of ahead, and you can start working on that one. But here, first one here, we have not Q or R. So you do the same thing, start with the same thing. Have as many trues as you can and work your way to as many falses as you can. And the reason I say that is because some of these might have more than two options. Some of them might have more than, well, if there's two options, that means there's four possibilities. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that back, because what we need to do is we need to take the inverse of Q, so the negation. And remember, when you say something is not that, it's going to reverse it. Like, again, if I said, fish live in space, and I put the word not in there, fish do not live in space. Well, that's true now. It is now true. It was false, but now it's true. Whew. Or if I take a true statement, it'll now be false. If I say squirrels live in the forest, and then I negate it, so it says squirrels do not live in the forest, which it might be true. I'm pretty sure you could find squirrels that don't live in the forest. But I'm pretty sure they'd want to live in the forest, and that's where they would most likely want to be at. Somehow I think I saw a squirrel that wasn't in the forest one time. I don't know, like I was in coal mine or something, and I saw a squirrel. It might not have been a squirrel, it might have been something else. Could have been like a badger or something. But it's weird seeing them not in the forest, because when you picture squirrels, they're usually running up trees and stuff. But anyway, yeah, there you go. So we change it to the opposite. And since we're not dealing with this anymore, because right, we don't need Q, we need a negation of Q. Now we do the what is this, or? So remember, if there's one true, then the statement comes out as true. So true, false, okay, true. False, false. Now that's false because neither of them work out. Neither of them are true. So that would mean that any combination you pick is going to be false. And then here I have another one of true, true, which two trues make it true. And if I have one true, it's still going to be true. Right? Because I only need one of those, one or the other, to be true, not both. I don't really need both of them to be true. But this next one here would be an and statement. So I'm going to go ahead and get that one. Now this one says not P and not R. So they're both negated. So again, the one I picked for P was squirrels are rodents. So this says squirrels are not rodents. And the one I picked for R was fish live in space. So that'd be fish do not live in space, or something like that. Now again, some of these will change, they'll tell you it has to start out being true or false. So again, looking right here, true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. Same order, but what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to change all of these. So what was true is now false, and what is false is now true. And I'm gonna have to do that for the other ones too, for R. So I need a whole nother column. I need a whole nother writing spot here. So again, switch all of them. So if it was true, now it's false. If it was false, now it's true. So that's all that's happening, is we're just switching them. And again, for this one, well, we do need the negation for both of them. So that's why we have a whole extra column of writing stuff. All right, now that we have both of the negation, we have the negation of P and the negation of R, I am going to go ahead and ignore this. Okay, just ignore it. I'm just covering it up because I don't want anybody looking at that thinking that's what we're supposed to be using. And again, on your work, just cover it with a hand or a pencil or something, you know. Just cover it up so you're not distracted by it, or just ignore it if you're. Some people are pretty good at just ignoring things. All right, so false, false. So again, in this case, we are looking for an and statement, so both of them have to be true. For this one here, we have false and true, which means that actually this one is false, so that means the whole thing is false. Over here, we have this one, which is false, which again means the entire statement is false. Because again, with an and, you need both of them. True, true. So if I only have one combination where they both come out to be true. So since that is the only combination where they come out to be true, that makes the whole statement true. And again, and is a little bit of a tougher one to get because you would need both of those to be true. All right, and you know, there's kind of one example I can think of this. Let's say you have a lamp, and you probably have this exact same setup in your house. So I have a lamp, and this lamp is plugged into a socket. All right, so I got one of them plugged into a socket, but this socket's a little bit of a different one. This socket runs off of a switch on the door or on the wall. Now, there's also a switch on the lamp as well. Usually they'll have a little knob sticking out, but sometimes they'll have other things like buttons. So in order for this lamp to be on, you need this wall light to be on, and you need this to be off. If I turn off the lamp, but the light switch is on, then it doesn't work. If I have the wall light on and the lamp switch itself off, it's still not going to turn on. The only way to make it work is if both of them are on. So you need this switch and that switch to work out. Now it's actually kind of rare to find an OR circuit. I think it is possible. I'm pretty sure it is possible, but they're very rare and you rarely ever find them. It would be something like a fire alarm. Okay, so like a fire alarm. If you think about the school, there's like, I don't know, 30 to 50. I've never actually counted them. But there's a lot of them. They're everywhere. They're in the library. They're in the all of the wings, and then they're in the cafeteria. You know, they're everywhere. Fire alarms are everywhere. If you just hit one of them, any of those one of 50 or whatever, however many there are, then the whole school's fire alarm goes off. So that would be like an OR statement. It could be that one, that one, that one, or 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 that one. So that would be an example of an OR circuit. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on. And again, some of these look kind of confusing, but I wouldn't worry too much about them. Okay, I'll give you a second or two to get those. Okay. All right, so this one says not P or sorry, not P or not Q. So for here we have our usual thing: true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. So again, that same pattern is always going to be there. And you're probably looking at this next one being like, oh man, there's some other stuff going on. But again, all we need to do is reverse each of these. So for this P column, we just reverse all of the signs. So if it was true, it's false. If it's false, it's true. And then we do the same thing for the other one, for Q as well. So true, false, false, true. So again, switch all the signs. Once we switch them all, I'm gonna just ignore these ones here. And again, I'm just covering them up so that you're not distracted by them. So false, false. And again, we're starting with the or statement. So the only way to get a false in an or statement is if both of them are false, which in this case, both of these are false. So that means this whole statement is false. But with or, that one's a little bit easier to get it because you only need one of them to be correct. So false, true, that means this whole one is true, the whole statement. And over here, true, false. So since one is true, that means the whole statement is true. True, true, still true. So again, that's all that's going on with it. I know it looks like there's a lot of stuff going on, especially with number 6 and number 7. I think there's an 8th one as well. But I'm going to go ahead and get started on number 6. Now this one's a little bit of a different one because you'll notice that there's a parentheses in there. That parentheses does make a difference. But think of it like a parenthesis in normal math, right? So if you got some normal math stuff going on, a parenthesis is a way of saying these are grouped. Okay, there's a group of those two. So in this case, I have a group of QR. And you keep that group together. So what we're gonna have to do is at some point we are gonna have to judge just by that one group of QR, we have to determine whether that's true or false. Now this one's a little bit more confusing maybe at first because you're looking at the how many of them there are. So there are 3 options, P, Q, R. So we need to come up with a way of making sure that we have all the combinations and that none of them repeat. So if we have 3 options, you might think, well, there's maybe 9 possibilities. So we got 2, 4, 6, 8. So there would actually be 8 possibilities because again, we cannot have any 2 of the same combination. So we must have a combination where, all 3 of them are true. And then we work our way till where all of them can be false. So here I have 3 truths, 2 truths, and I should have one more with 2 truths. Or actually this one has 2 truths. It has a truth here and a truth there. So I have one combination where the first 2 are true, where the second, the 2 last are true, and then one where on each side are true. All right, so again, whatever way you do this, there's not really, I don't know if what do we call it, a best way? There's not really a best way, but whatever way you pick, you just got to make sure you pick all combinations. Just like with false, here I have 1 false, 2 false, 1 false, 2 false that are separated, and then 2. So I have 2 of them, so in this case I have the 2 last ones. Over here I have the 2 first ones. And then I have a split here. And then they have to have a combination where each of the falses are by themselves. So 1 false, 1's fault in the middle, 1 fault in the last. So again, I wish there was a better way I could tell you to make sure you do this without missing any of them. But no. All right, so what we need to do now is we need a third, well, not really a third column. In this case, it'd be a 4th column. But I need a 4th column where I test only Q and R. So for now, I'm just going to cover this up so we can ignore it. And we're just going to judge it just like regular. 2 truths makes it true. Now, because this is an AND statement, they both need to be true, which means a true false would be false. A false true would also be false. False false, still false. 2 truths. Okay, that one's a true and this one's a true because they both have a combination of 2 truths. And the rest of these all have at least 1 F they have at least one false. So since they have at least one false statement, that means the whole thing is false. So I only have 2 of them that are true. All right, so that's the compound. That's the one where they're together. Or what? I don't know if compound was the right word. What was the word they used? Oh yeah, compounds. Okay, no wait. Include columns for the compound statements. All right, so I guess I was true. That was true. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is, as this one compound together are treated as one. All right, so they're just treated as one piece. So that means only 2 of them are true and the rest are all false. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just put those together. Just imagine that they're the same thing. They're on the same side. Because for this last one here, we need this one and this one. We need P, so I'm gonna ignore Q and R. And we also need this other Q and R. Now, since we've already determined the truth and false from these 2 here, we're just gonna go ahead and use this one. So that is the or, right? So if an or is, if there's one truth, that means they're both true. So looking at here, true, true, okay, both true. True, false, true. And most of these have at least one true and one false. True, false, false, true, false, false. So this one is a false. This one also has a false, 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 false. So I have 3 of them that are all false. Okay, so again, yeah, I know it can, it does look like there's a lot of stuff going on. All right, so that's it for that one. And this number 7 is pretty much the same thing. Not exactly the same thing. All right, just stretched a little bit. But we're gonna have to come up with that same set of steps. So first thing we're gonna do is just focus on the first 2. Right, so just focus on the first 2. Oh, actually, no, there's 3 in this one here. And this one also includes a negation as well. So start with that same pattern. In fact, I think they even did start with the same pattern because there's 8 of them, and you want to make sure you start with as many trues and work your way to as many falses as the way I would recommend. But just make sure you don't pick any of the combinations. So like if I have TTF here, there should not be another TTF anywhere in this table. Now, after we do that, the first thing we would need to do is get the negation of G, or sorry, that's Q. Looked like a G there for a second. So again, switch your truths to falses and your falses to truths. Because again, that's just saying the opposite of whatever you're saying. So if I said, if I started off with a false statement and I said fish live in space, I would have to put a not in there. So that would be fish do not live in space, which actually does make it true. Or if I start with a true statement, again, squirrels live in the forest. And if I say not, squirrels do not live in the forest. And again, you can probably think of a few examples. I'm pretty sure there are some squirrels that don't live anywhere near a forest. But I'm sure given the choice, nearly most of them would choose to live somewhere, at least where they can climb stuff. All right, so the thing we're gonna have to work with is this here. Now, since we also have to group the P and R, and that says P and R, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to take column P and column R. So I'm just gonna block these ones now so we can ignore them. And then find the truth or falseness of any of these. So since this is an and statement, remember, and statements are very difficult to prove true because you need both of them true. which only this first one, oopsie, which only this first one here, and I see only one other one here, maybe that one. That is the only two where I have two truths, because the rest of these all have one truth, one false, or even two falses. So that would mean this one is true, and that one is true. Well, the rest of them are false. Now, we're going to take this column here, everything in this column, we're going to judge it up against now opposite of Q. So we need negation of Q and here. So something like that. And since I'm only working with these two last ones, I'm going to go ahead and cover these up. And it would be pretty tough. I would imagine it would be pretty tough trying to go without the middle step. All right. So anyway, now this is the main one we're focusing on right here. This one, those two things, they're grouped. Okay. So don't worry about that. We are already covering it in this column right here. So now in this case, it looks like we have an and, which means we need to find two truths. So I only see one here, and where would another one be? I don't think there are any more truths. False, false, truth, false, 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 false. So in this case, there is only one combination. There's only one possibility of everything being true. All right. Whew. And here we go to the last one now. And I know these are probably a little tough. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if a few people were lost on the last two. So this last one here, hopefully will, you know, if you've been kind of following along, hopefully it'll make sense. But it looks like here we are talking about not P or Q and not R. So same thing, start off the same way you have so far. And find a way to get from as many truths to as many falses is my recommendation. But again, you can't pick the same combination. You can't pick, you know, two of them with the same ones. You can't have, again, a true, false, true, right? There should not be any other true, false, truths. All right, so now we got that. And again, this first part's, you know, that you just have to come up with that. Or you could just copy this one here, because if you, these three here, that's the one you copy. Everything else is going to be different. Okay, because it all depends on what's going on up here. So just this part, just the combination of how it works out. That's the only thing you would copy. All right, now we have to negate each of them. So P, and we change each of those signs to not P. And that's just going to change all the truths to falses and all the falses to true. And then we do the same thing with R. So in this case here, we have two negations. We have another one on R. So I'm going to go ahead and just reverse all of the R's. Reverse all of the R's. Now, we have the first compound one. So again, we have a lot more columns because we also have to judge it, you know, just by the two columns that were given. So now that we have the negation of R, we should be fine. So let's go ahead and move to this first group here. See how I have that group there? What we're going to do with that group is we are going to, we're just going to get the two of these. So I need not P and Q. So I'm going to cover this up. Cover this up and cover this up. So see, I'm only working with this column and this column. Those are the only two I'm working with. So we now begin the true and false thing. So this is an or. So if there is one truth that means it is going to be true. So let's look for the falses, the two falses. So false, false, that's going to be false. Here I have another one, false, false, also false. The rest of them are going to be true because they at least have one truth. And for this last column, now this one finally matches what we have written in the original problem. So we're going to be dealing with, again, this one here, this first one. Those two, even though they have two things, they count as, we're going to count them as one item. Okay, we're going to count them as one item. So now we need opposite of R. So I'm going to go ahead and clear off all this. So this column and this column, those are the only two that we need. So all this other stuff, I'm going to block it so that we're not distracted by it. And now our main sign is going to be this one right here, the one that's joining our group and the one we're comparing it to. So in this case here, we're using this table here again. That might be a little bit confusing. That's why I'm saying it again, because I know some people are going to be like, well, how do I, do I need, well, you already determined it right here. So you already kind of know what it's going to be. So again, this one is the one we're looking at. So that's going to be an AND statement. So in this case, if it is an AND statement, we need both of them to be true. So let's look for the ones that are true, true. Two trues there and another pair of two trues there. Oh, what do you know? There's a third one. Okay, FT, FT, TF, FF, FT. So there you go. I got three combinations that are all true. So those ones are the ones that are going to be true. And if I pick, any of these three, that's going to create a true statement. And that's pretty much it. I think we're just about done. So again, don't forget, you do have time during the day that you can ask questions, right? We call it the independent student learning time. That is the time that you can use to ask questions. If you need help with any of the homework or anything like that, that's the time that you get help. So at the end of this whole semester thingy, I know that there are going to be students that say, oh, Mr. Nez doesn't help me. No, I'm asking if you need help right now, okay? If I ask you if you need help and you don't say anything, it's not my fault. It really isn't, okay? And as I've said before, it's not like somebody's just gonna go run up to you and say, hey, you want a job? Or if they actually do that, then it's probably not a job that you want. Or it's probably really dangerous. And if you don't mind danger, I guess, it might work out. But in most cases, if you want something, you're gonna have to go be prepared to go out and get it. So that's what's going on now. Don't be afraid to go out and get answers, because I am gonna put I'm gonna give you some help, but if you need any more, then you are gonna have to ask for it, okay? Because I can't read your mind. I don't know what's going on with you. I don't know, I don't know everything about you. That I don't know that you didn't understand that part or this part. I don't know that. All right, so I think that's it for today. We're done with the lesson for now. But remember, again, we do have the student learning. You are expected to be there. You don't have to, well, I'm gonna go ahead and say that you have to be there just until I get a confirmation that we don't, because I know I am gonna get people that are gonna be like, it's not required, so I'm just gonna, leave as soon as we can. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video for now.